is gripping between Chelsea and Barcelona in the Champions League, and tonight was no different. Tie still alive. Antonio Conte's side still alive going into the second leg at the Camp Nou. Neil Lennon, what did you make of it?
Well, it was fascinating viewing. Thought Chelsea were excellent. I feel for them a little bit. And I feel for them because they scored a great goal. And maybe on the balance of play, in terms of possession, not deserved, but technically Conte got it bang on. And at that stage, they were on the front foot, but to concede a goal in the manner that they did, you know, it wasn't well worked by Barcelona. Chelsea shot themselves in the foot. And it's basically given Barcelona, you know, a huge advantage going into the second leg. But it'll be more of the same at the Nou Camp. There's no question that. I was, in the main, disappointed with Barcelona tonight. And I think it's a trick that Chelsea have missed out on tonight.
Chris Sutton said an interesting thing after that first goal went in, after the Chelsea goal went in, Kevin, that they got what they deserved, Chelsea, in terms of their performance, yet they'd only had, I don't know, 25, 30% of possession. Did he have a point, though, in the way they approached the game?
It was the tactics that Antonio Conte used tonight. He set up to defend deep. And in fairness, Barcelona created very little across the course of the 90 minutes, really. Courtois had very little to do. That was how they played. They defended very deep. There was very little space for Suarez. So, in what Chris Sutton's saying there is right, because they defended deep and the tactics were actually working for them. Once you get in front in a game like that, though, given, as I said before, that Chelsea created very little, it's mistakes that have cost Chelsea tonight. And Antonio Conte spoke about it before the game. We need a perfect performance. They nearly got it. And it was, 30 seconds or 20 seconds that's cost them tonight's game.
Close, but not quite close enough. A fascinating night, fascinating Champions League Tuesday. All to play for at the Camp Nou in the second leg. Barca with the away goal and just about favourites to see off Chelsea after tonight's hard-fought 1-1 draw. Messi on the score sheet. Here are the match stats. Barca with the lion's share of possession, 68% possession, but only 2 attempts on target for all that possession. Neil Lennon, give me your overall assessment of Barcelona for what you saw tonight.
Well, look, you know, they dominated the game, but Chelsea let them do that. Chelsea sacrificed, you know, certain parts of the pitch, forced them into wide areas. What I don't like about this Barcelona team is that there's a lack of dynamism about them. From what I've saw tonight, you know, you've got 4 centre midfield players in midfield. There's no real pace in wide areas, and they're heavily reliant on Messi, as normal, but on Suarez to create something, or, you know, 2 attempts on target, 70% possession, nowhere near enough, or not what we're used to seeing from Barcelona. But Valverde will go away delighted with the result. Yeah. They got fortunate with the goal because Chelsea shot themselves in the foot. But apart from that, you know, there's still a great football inside the watch, but for me, they just lack a bit of oomph.
Has Valverde, who we praised before the game for what he's done with Barca, has he made them a solid but a lot less spectacular?
Yeah, I was going to say, unspectacular team, and that's exactly what they are. As you say, solid. We talked about the stats before the game. 1 Champions League goal, 11 La Liga goals conceded this season. Yes, difficult to break down, but I do feel when it's going to come to the final stage, I think they'll probably get through this tie. I think they'll have enough to go now and beat Chelsea at home. But when they're coming up against the better sides, I think they're going to come unstuck, and I think they're not going to be able to break down the better sides. Will they beat a Man City? Will they be able to beat a Real Madrid at the very best? A PSG, a Bayern Munich? I just don't think they're going to be able to open those sides up, and that's where I think they'll fall short again this season.
I'll tell you another thing that I noticed tonight. They still have an Achilles heel, Tommy, defending set players. You know, Chelsea get one from a short one, but a couple of times Chelsea put the ball in the box to switch off and created maybe a couple of half chances. So that's something that they haven't improved on, and something that other teams will recognise.
What about Chelsea? It's been, you know, a tumultuous season in many ways after almost cruising to the title last year. They struggle at times juggling League and Champions League. Where does Conte stand after a performance like this? Did he prove his managerial credentials again tonight? Yeah,
absolutely. I think he surprised a few of us with his lineup, and I was surprised that they conceded so much ground. For me, I think they paid too much respect too early to Barcelona, which I understand. You don't want to give anything away. You don't want to be chasing the tie early on. And I thought in Willian, the best player on the pitch, you know, he'll be supported. Conte had a great game. I thought they defended pretty well. But they've given themselves a lot to do. And it's easy to defend. Now they're going to have to go to the new camp and still be cautious, but they've got to score.
Well, let's hear from downbeat there, but a real sense that they felt that the plan worked. But should they have been more aggressive during this game, given the trouble they caused Barcelona when they did attack?
Well, I understand when they went in front, perhaps Conte was reluctant to change things, but Neil touched on it pre-match, he touched on it at half-time, that they are perhaps missing a trick here tonight by not playing a Morata or Giroud up front there tonight, because I think Eden Hazard tonight, he was totally isolated, he wasn't involved in the game, and I think they've sacrificed his talents tonight for what he can actually give that team just for the greater good of the side, and I think in general Hazard's new contract is up for renewal. Now, he's got to be looking at that performance tonight. He's got to be looking at the team's performance tonight and thinking, are they getting the best out of me at this sort of level? And they simply haven't tonight. Hazard was totally anonymous, really, in the game, given the talent that he's got and given the ability that he's got playing in wider areas and how he can create. Hazard didn't get involved tonight. And I think that's got to be a concern, I think, for Chelsea supporters when you see Hazard not having the impact that he should be having at this level.
How much would that team cost tonight at Chelsea, Kev? 200 million?
Easy.
You'd expect more in terms of an attacking sense.
Definitely.
Especially playing at home.
I think when you got...
Sorry, it was Celtic.
Yeah.
That team cost 10, 15 million. This team costs 200 odd million pounds. You'd like to think they'd have more of an attacking belief about them rather than just sit in and hope for the odd counter-attack here and there.
Well, you heard Fabregas say that to do that at the Camp Nou would be a suicide mission. So did they see enough tonight in terms of Willian hitting the post twice, taking the lead, causing trouble whenever they did attack, to have a different plan at the Camp Nou?
I think this Chelsea team can go there and score. You know, there's plenty there tonight for me to think if they're a bit more positive, you know, they might get further up the pitch a little bit in the new camp, then the game might be there for them. But I do think he will have to go with a bona fide centre forward this time, because they will need a get-out ball. Morata can give you that, Hazard on the left, Willian on the right. Those three could cause Barcelona real problems. They could cause any teams, a lot of problems with those front three.
I think the word that Willian used was compact. That's the word that I heard Antonio Conte use in his press conferences. That was how they were. Yeah, they were compact. They weren't really open and expansive tonight. And again, it's understandable with the quality they've got. But if they play like that again and they allow Barcelona to gain momentum, attack after attack, they are going to be hurt. They will definitely score Barcelona at the Nou Camp against a side that plays against them like that. That's why I feel as though you need a bit of pace up front. You need a Morata that can perhaps stretch them or at least hold the ball up, because Hazard's strength is not holding the ball up for his side.
Lots of big moments in that first leg to analyse. Talk about with Kevin and Neil. That goal came, the Willian goal came after they'd lifted the siege after a long period of Barca pressure, Neil. It was that man Willian who was so influential tonight.
Yeah, I mean, Barcelona started the second half pretty well in terms of possession. Chelsea came out. It's a sclaff shot from Fabregas, comes off Iniesta, you know, in between Umtiti's legs, goes out for the corner. Just gets a touch on it. Umtiti, goes out for the corner. So they work a short one. We all go back in there. Busquets comes out. Half a yard from Willian, does it brilliantly, but I just want to talk about Umtiti. There's the Barcelona line, Umtiti stays in. And Busquets was attracted by Christensen, now he goes to Willian. Little shift, Umtiti's still in there playing everyone on side. If he comes out, then Rudiger, who might have blocked Ter Stegen's view, might have been given offside. But they have a real problem. They're sloppy at times, Barcelona, with set plays. No getting away from the finish, though. It's absolutely brilliant, and he uses Rudiger as a block.
So no fault on Busquets there in terms of closing him. He did it.
He's having the 2-2 jobs, right? Initially, he's tracking Christensen. The ball's played to the edge of the box. He tries to get out there, but I'm going about this lack of pace in the Barcelona team. You know, there's a dynamism about Pedro at times, about Willian at times, about Hazard at times, and he already threatened. So once he stood Busquets up, he shifts his body half a yard to the right and slides in a beautiful shot, really crisp and low. And probably on the balance of play, Chelsea deserved the lead.
I personally think Busquets could have got out quicker. I think he's got to read that pass going into the central area. I think he could react to that pass and get out that little bit quicker. I don't think he does that.
Let's have a look at the equaliser then. It's a kind of a long sequence because it starts with a free kick shout or a penalty shout from Suarez.
I don't think it was a penalty. It's actually Messi that starts to move off as soon as Messi receives it. The only real chance that they got that one straight ball where they got Suarez into the game, but I certainly don't think the contact was in the penalty area there. But I think when he gets into that position there, Christensen, there's no real options for him. Can he maybe try to put it up the pitch? He's trying to be a bit too clever. Overhits the pass to Fabregas. Azpilicueta going to ground. That's criminal going to ground in that position. This is the penalty shot here. There is a foul there, yes, but it's outside the penalty area. I think there's a couple of fouls. There's a little push initially, but all contact is outside the penalty area, so no penalty, I don't think, there. Suarez, of course.
Does it distract the Chelsea defence?
Well, he's certainly gone down looking for it, hasn't he? You know, I think he's pointing to the ref. It was a foul, yes, but I think it's just outside the area. What I like about here, Messi is initiating that press. He's recognising that ball's been played into Fabregas. As I said before, Azpilicueta going to ground. But Iniesta, in drawing Fabregas towards him, he recognises that Messi's free, and it's a brilliant ball. It's brilliantly weighted pass back, top-class play. And that's exactly what Barcelona are all about when they get into that position. It's a lovely finish from Messi.
It's Iniesta's 12th assist for Messi in Champions League football, the most of any Barcelona player that he's provided assists for. You were talking about at half-time, Neil, the fact that all the work that those Chelsea midfielders were going to have to do, the Chelsea players in general, that it was going to tell that mistakes would come, tiredness would come in. Do you think that's what happened there?
Well,
working too hard?
It came from the two outside centre-halves. Square ball across your box is never a great idea. And it's a misplaced pass. And Kevin's right, Azpilicueta's decision-making. Of all people, he's a fantastic defender. The go-to-ground there is suicidal against the quality of player. Iniesta smells of danger, lovely little sidestep. But if Azpilicueta stays on his feet, he doesn't get by him. And then Iniesta has the awareness to know where Messi is, and it's a brilliant finish. And it's such a shame for Chelsea, because the game plan was, up until then, working quite well for them.
So where do you guys stand then? Because at one point we're saying the game plan working well. Yeah. We heard from Fabregas and Willian talking about they felt everything was working well, that Conte deserves credit tactically, and yet you're also saying that Chelsea fans will be ruining that performance tonight.
Me personally, I think they've missed the trick. You know, I think with the talent that they have, they're at home. It was important, and maybe he was looking to, you know, take a clean sheet of the game. I just felt that Barcelona might have been there for the taking tonight, and to take a decent lead. I just felt they were a little bit tentative and a little bit maybe too respectful of Barcelona, but, you know, maybe that's just my opinion.
Well, I think you've got one of the best players in European football in Hazard. He's one of the best players around. You know, he's been linked with Real Madrid. I think that's certainly got to come into his head after tonight, given the role that he's played. I think if you play Hazard a little bit deeper, if you have a striker that he can play off, I think you're getting Hazard into the game more. I think tonight he just didn't have as much involvement.
Let's look at some of his incidents, and you know, it was a point you made before the game, that role that he had. How do you think it worked out for him tonight?
Well, yeah, I mean, early on he had a couple of half chances. He's getting the ball, he's driving in off the wing again, where he got a little bit of joy coming in onto his left foot that time, strike off target. But this is exactly what Hazard can do. He gets defenders backed up, frightened to death of him, and they're all making challenges against him. That's what he wasn't able to do enough tonight. He wasn't able to get up ahead of steam and get running with the ball. Again, in this position, it's a lovely ball played through to him, but look how many defenders he sucks over into his path, into his area. He frees up Willian. This is where the goal nearly came from. That is what Eden Hazard can do. He's put so much fear into the opposition. I mean, this is a little lucky. It's a difficult one to hit coming out of the air. He's under a little bit of pressure. He can't bring it down, essentially. But that was literally what he was limited to tonight, because he wasn't playing in his correct role.
That was all
make me the main man is...
Well, yeah, I mean, he is the main man, you know, so in the big games you want to get as much ball to your main man as possible, and especially with Sergio Roberto playing it right back, I think that would have been a duel. Hazard would have won all ends up.
What about the point Kevin makes then about Hazard's future in general, and him maybe looking at this going like, I should be at a team that's going at a Barcelona and not playing for 25-30% possession? I mean, does this feed into the stuff that Conte has been talking about the ambition of the club? I mean, there's a statistic that their net spend over the past two windows starts at 51 million, which is only the fifth most in the Premier League. Much smaller clubs are spending more than them in recent times. That's been Conte's complaint of late.
Yeah, I think that's a big statement that when you're the Premier League champions, you want to build on that, and Chelsea haven't done that. You know, especially with the prize money for winning the Premier League, qualifications to the Champions League. You know, the owner having so much money. Maybe he's losing interest in it. It remains to be seen. But I always felt once you were the champions, you built on that, and I don't see the support there. I'm not convinced he has a good relationship, if any sort of relationship, with the owner or the chairman.
So as a manager, do you have sympathy for him, or do you feel that as a manager, you have to just manage up, you know, and you manage your situation that you're in.
No, I do have sympathy for him. When you see the money that both Manchester clubs have spent, Liverpool going to spend 75 million on a central defender, but obviously they've recouped some money. They haven't, you know, been up there with the exorbitant spending of the other two teams, and it's very, very difficult for them to maintain the standards that they set last year. And it looks to me like instead of them going forward or maintaining the level, they've actually gone back the way.
Well, that puts more pressure on them with Hazard. It puts much more pressure on them because Hazard is seeing the situation, saying we're going backwards as a club.
United, City and Palace upcoming for them in the next couple of games before they face Barcelona again. What kind of shape do you expect them to be in then, and what do you think the approach will be that night?
Well, I mean, I can't see Hazard playing the role he's played tonight in certainly the bigger games he's got coming up. I think he has to. I think he certainly has to play Hazard on perhaps, well, certainly the left wing, get Wayne into the side, and he's got to play with a striker, with a Giroud, with a Morata as the focal point of that side.
Have to go for it, don't they?
Yeah, definitely.
Right, next